Making queries. Once you've got your data model set up, Django hooks you up with a slick database abstraction API that makes it a breeze to create, fetch, update, and delete objects. No more manual sculpt queries or tedious database operations. This guide will walk you through harnessing the power of this API. I have prepared Django models to show you how to make queries in Django. If you want to follow along, feel free to pause the video and type out the code snippets. Hands-on practice is the best way to learn, so let's dive in. Creating objects. Django utilizes a straightforward approach to translate database table data into Python objects. In this system, a model class acts as a representation of a database table, while an instance of that class represents a specific record within the database table. In Django, save and create are two methods used in query operations for interacting with the database. Here are their uses in a nutshell. Save, used to update or save changes to an existing object. Create, used to create a new object instance and save it to the database in a single step. Here's an example of how to create objects using both the create method and the save method in the Django shell. Let's start by creating a new blog object using the save method. This line imports the date class from the datetime module. The date class is used to represent dates in Python. Next, we import the blog, author, and entry models from the Making Queries app. Let's create a new blog object with the specified name and tagline. Next, we will use the save method to save the blog instance to the database. And as you can see, the save method uses two steps to create and save the instance in the database. Next, we will repeat the same procedure to create the author and entry objects using the save method. The foreign key relationship in the entry model is created using the blog field. This field is defined as a foreign key in the entry model, referencing the blog model. When creating an instance of the entry model, you assign a blog instance to the blog field, establishing the relationship between the entry and blog models. The pub date is set to the current date using date today. We won't need to add the mod date because it's already have its own default value. When dealing with many-to-many relationships in Django, you cannot directly assign values to the forward side of the relationship. Instead, you need to use the set or add method to set the relationship. That's why we will skip it for now. Now, let's see how we can create many-to-many instance of the author using the set method. In Django, when you have a many-to-many relationship field, such as author, you can use the set method to assign the related objects to the field. Here, we will get error message which indicates that we need to save the entry object before we assign the authors to the many-to-many relationship. This error occurs because the entry object must have an ID assigned by the database before we can add a many-to-many relationship to it. To resolve this issue, you should save the entry object before assigning authors to the many-to-many relationship. Next, let's see how we can create and save object in one step using the create method. Create a blog object. Create an author object. Finally, we create entry object. Notice that in this step, we directly used the set method without saving the entry object first. We was able to do that because the create method is one-step procedure that create and save the object in one single line of code. Now, let's use the pretty table to check if our objects was created and saved in the database. Import the models and pretty table library. Fetch all the instances from the database, and notice that we are using the all method to fetch instance. Create a pretty table for each model. Populate the tables with the instance data. Then print the tables. Notice that every object that we have created is in the database. Next, we are going to see how to update our objects. Saving changes to objects. I'll be using the Pretty Table library to demonstrate how the save method is used in Django. This library helps present data in a neat and visually pleasing table format. By using it, we can showcase the simplicity and effectiveness of the save method for updating existing objects in the database. That will make the process easy to understand. Here, we will start with the blog database table. Now, let's say we want to update an object in the database. With the ID of 1, we will use save method like this. Retrieves a blog object from the database with the primary key of 1. We use the get method to fetch the specific blog object based on its primary key. After retrieving the blog object, we update the name attribute of the blog object. We assign the string value, my first blog, to the name attribute. And then we save the changes made to the blog object in the database. The save method persists the updated name attribute to the database, ensuring that the changes are reflected in the underlying data store. Now, let's use the Pretty Table to check if our changes was reflected in the data store. In essence, the code snippet ensures that modifications are applied exclusively to the first object within the collection of blog objects in the database. Through this methodical process, the name attribute of the chosen blog object undergoes transformation, and the revised information is seamlessly saved back into the database using the save method. As you can see, our name was changed successfully. Updating a foreign key field works exactly the same way as saving a normal field. Assign an object of the right type to the field in question. In this example, we update the blog attribute of an entry instance entry, assuming appropriate instances of entry and blog are already saved to the database. But first, let's use the Pretty Table to see the instance that we are going to update. We are going to update the blog name of the first objects. We use the get method to retrieve the blog object with the primary key of 1 from the database. By referencing the primary key, we ensure that we are specifically targeting the first object within the collection. Here, a blog object is retrieved from the database using the get method. The retrieval is based on the name attribute, with the condition that matches the string value, my first blog. Here we assign the my first blog object to the blog attribute of the first entry object. By doing so, the relationship between the first entry and blog objects is established or updated. The first entry object will now be associated with the my first blog. Finally, the changes made to the first entry object, specifically the updated blog attribute, are saved to the database using the save method. This ensures that the modified relationship between the entry and blog objects is persisted in the underlying data store. Now, let's check if the changes are saved in the database using Pretty Table. Updating a many-to-many field works a little differently. We use the add or set method on the field to add a record to the relation. But first, it's better to take a look at our database before we make changes. First, we retrieve an entry object from the database with the primary key of 2. We also retrieves an author object from the database with the primary key of 1. Then we use the add method to add the retrieved author object to the retrieved entry object. Now, let's see if there was any change made in our database. As you can see, the author name was updated, but it currently have 2 names instead of 1. Here is the reason why it has 2 names. The add method is used to add 1 or more related objects to the many-to-many relationship field. It appends the specified objects to the existing set of related objects. If the relationship already exists, the add method has no effect. This method is suitable when you want to add additional related objects without removing any existing relationships. But what if you want to add additional related objects and remove any existing relationships? In that case, we will use the set method, and that's what we are going to explore in the next example. Here, we follow the same procedure of changing a many-to-many field object, but instead of using the add method, we will use the set method. Now, let's use the pretty table to check if we have added only 1 author name. In summary, the choice between set and add depends on whether you want to replace all existing relationships or append additional relationships, respectively. Choose the method that best fits your specific requirements for modifying many-to-many relationships in Django. Thank you for watching this video on creating, saving, and updating instances in Django using queries. We hope you found it informative and engaging. As we wrap up, here are 3 reasons why you should invest time in mastering query operations in Django. Efficiency and flexibility. By understanding how to construct queries, you gain the power to retrieve, filter, and manipulate data from your database with precision. Data manipulation. Queries allow you to update, delete, and modify data in the database. This is useful when your views involve handling user input, form submissions, or any data modification operations. Data presentation and transformation. Queries can be used to shape and transform data before presenting it to users. With query skills, you can aggregate data, apply calculations, filter results, and organize data in a way that aligns with your specific view requirements. In the next video, we will dive into retrieving objects using queries in Django. We'll explore advanced querying techniques, filtering, sorting, and more. To stay updated and support our work, make sure to subscribe to our channel. By subscribing, you'll be notified when the new video is released, ensuring you won't miss any valuable Django insights. Thank you again for watching, and we look forward to bringing you more exciting Django content in the future.